Hello everyone, this is Jeff again, back at Ferrari FXS. Like I said, we've got the motor out. Today we're going to start to remove this bell housing for the clutch assembly because I need to order the throwout bearing, and I've got to measure it because there's two different sizes that are available. So I got to figure out what size we have so I can get this on order from Ferrparts. Like I said before, remember Ferrparts is the supplier of all the parts on this project. So if you need any Ferrari parts, Maserati, Lamborghini, contact them and they'll hook you up. So anyway, we're going to start taking this bell housing off. But before you do that, there's some on the bottom also. There's some hardware for this screen right there. These are number 8s. You have to remove this because the housing is split between here. So you're going to remove both those, or all 4 of those screws. And then I believe these are all 13s. And then after you remove this cover, there's a big nut behind there. So we'll take the bottom screen off and then take this cover off, and then we'll try to break that nut loose. Probably have to use an impact. So let's go ahead and get that started. So okay, when you remove this, over here on the side, this line to bleed your clutch assembly, this is a 10. This is captured. There's a spacer here on this little bracket, so here, don't forget that. And then like I said, we've got the hardware all loose. The screen down below is removed. It's right there. The cap, the end cap here's off. So we'll take this apart here and then we'll break this loose here. All right. Okay, so now we have all the hardware removed on the perimeter of the housing here. Like I said, the screen there. So we should be able to pull this whole assembly off right now, and then we can disassemble this flywheel nut after it's on the ground or off the motor. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that right now. It's just like I said, just going to pull it straight off. All right, so that's what it looks like with the housing removed. Here's your input shaft. You can pull this out a little bit here, and that's where your triple seals are located. You can see them right here. These will have to be replaced later on. There's a snap ring here. They'll have to remove those, but we'll get to that later on. I'm just going to push that back in. And this is where you get your leak. You'll see like your transmission fluid, transaction fluid on the ground. This is where it's coming out of this shaft here, most likely. So, I mean, anyway, so we've got this other piece over here. Let me grab this. And we've got it sitting here over the stand on the left. Here's your clutch assembly. So to remove that, you're going to have to break that nut loose on the front side, which I have a socket here. It's a 46. It's basically, I think it's for a full drive hub assembly that I bought years ago when I worked on this car a long time ago. So I'm going to use this tool to break this nut loose on the other side. It may be a pain because this whole assembly is going to want to turn on you. So hopefully with an impact, I won't have an issue. So this is like a locking nut that kind of helps hold that in place. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and break that loose with the impact and then remove that assembly from the housing. Okay, so we took the nut off, had to use an impact, and then I had to use kind of an air hammer to give it a few taps. And I got a socket about the same diameter as this assembly because you want to keep it about the same size. So I kind of hit it a few times, and then it dropped out. And it's recommended that you may want to put some wood above it so it has an area to drop out of there. And I put this padding underneath there. So just be careful you don't shear these screws off here for your screen. Okay, so like I said, we have that nut and everything off right now. Here's a nut, and I had to use an impact to drive that out. So once we used the socket, same size, drove that out. Recommended putting this on some boards here so you allow it to drop out. And then you should be able to lift this off. And then you can tell that this clutch assembly, this portion here that has the grease in it, is leaking. It's like a balancer, because you can see all the grease on the inside here. So that'll all have to be cleaned out, and then that'll have to be serviced, and then we'll shoot a video on that. But as of right now, I've got this apart, and then I'll take a look at it here. Let me get it up on its side and show you a few things. So I'd imagine that here, looking at this again, with all this grease inside this bell housing here, it's supposed to be inside here. This O-ring, there's an O-ring in here that it actually leaks. It allows the grease to go out. And it was probably getting hard to start, especially during when it was hot. So I'd have to ask the customer if he had any issues. All right, so like I said earlier, I was going to have to ask the customer if he was having a hard time starting the car when it was hot, because usually when it gets this bad, it usually gets an out of balance condition, which then makes it harder to start. So right now we're going to leave that, and we're going to go ahead and remove this assembly. So to do that, I've got this like T46 bit, and I'm going to remove all these screws around here, all these around the perimeter here, and then that should come loose from the rest of the clutch assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that at this moment. Okay, I started loosening these bolts here, and I just got to remember that this thing, like I said, is a balanced unit. So you'll see, like, there'll be some little divot marks here. So there's one here, and one here, and one on this assembly here. If you take this apart, make sure all those line up. Okay, that is like a balanced unit. So if you take it apart, make sure when you put it back together that those all line up. All right, so I'm going to continue to take these loose, but I just want to make a note of that. Okay, so I've got this, like I said, this is apart now. Here's my bolts that go through this balance assembly. And at this point, you could take this apart. Like I said, I'll do that later on. Here's your clutch assembly. This is a single clutch pressure plate. Some have dual. I believe the earlier cars had the dual system. This is a later car. This is a 94 348 Spider. So they should only come with a single clutch disc. So that is the disc in there. I'll have to remove the bolts from the other side to get this assembly apart. And then I'll probably have to get this flywheel here resurfaced at a local machine shop. So, but I need to do something else. There is a couple different throwout bearings that come on these cars, and I need to get that coming. So I'm going to switch over here to the other portion, and I'm going to remove the throwout bearing here. So I'm going to have to take that out and then measure it and then get that ordered. So I'm going to go ahead and take these 4 bolts out, and I believe that should come off, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so I have the throwout bearing removed. Like I said, the 4 bolts, washer. It has 2 little O-rings here. It has a bigger O-ring here. Here's your throwout bearing here. It's got another seal in here. I'm not sure if the new one will come with that or not. We may have to order this separate. We'll see. But this is the throwout bearing assembly, and I have to measure it to make sure it's either going to be a 50 or a 55. So I'm going to check it out here and see. Hey, this is Jeff again, and we're kind of continuing this section with the clutch. We removed the bearing the other day, and this is a throwout bearing, and this is the housing that it fits in. Okay, it's got a couple different seals. This is the seal that fits in this front portion here. It fits only one way. As you can see, the back is open, so that's going to go down. And then you have another seal here, and then you've got an inner seal. There's 3 seals on this. Also, to get this throwout bearing out, it was, let me pull this over here. This was in here like this. Down, it's actually down in there. And to get that out of there, you have to press this. And to press that out, you see there's some little holes there with a punch. You either knock it out with a punch or have a press where you have some punches that can push that out. I mean, that wasn't the easiest thing. Also, you might want to know here, there's two different bearing sizes, and I kind of messed this up. There is a 50 and a 55. This bearing is a 55, and let me show you how this is measured. Okay, so you're going to take your micrometer here on millimeters, and you're going to spread it out here, and you want the center of the bearing here pretty much, and you kind of want to go up and down here, and it's kind of hard to see. It's going to be upside down, but let me, if I can get this centered. If you could see, that's a 55. See how I got that in there? That is a 55. So that's how you determine the diameter, the bore, for the measurement of the throwout bearing. So just to help you out. But anyway, I measured that wrong. I measured the shaft that's coming out of here, which is different. It's about a 50. So that's how I messed it up. But anyway, that's how you measure that. And then we're going to go ahead and change these seals out here. We're just going to use a pick and drive those out and install those. And like I said, just put a little lube on there when you're installing them, and you'll be good. All right, so I've changed these seals already. And I just used a pick, and I was able to just grab it and pull them out. And this one was I used from the back. I actually pushed this one out from the back with the pick. I mean, it doesn't take much to push that out. So I just basically took the pick, got behind here some holes, and pushed it out. But there's a trick to put that in there. As you can see, this one here is not flat. It's kind of got like a little ridge on here, and you don't want to crush that or deform that. So what I ended up, I got the old one here, as you can see, and I found a socket. And basically, I found a socket to where this ridge kind of sits down in there. And then when it sits in there, it's flush, okay? And then I just took that same socket, and I took the new one, and I pushed it down in there. I just hand forced, and I was able just to push it down in there to get that seated. So you don't crush this or deform that. So just kind of a heads up, you know, something to make it easier. So if you got a large socket, this one here, now it may vary. I can't even read it. It's such an old socket. But just find a socket that will fit over that, and you can just be able to force that in there. But that's all you do to change these seals. Like I said, this one up in the front here, make sure that the open end is facing inboard, okay? Like here's the seal here, and you can see how the one end is open and the other one is closed. So this is the way it's supposed to be installed, like this, okay? And then just kind of tuck it in there, and you'll be good. And these other ones, this one doesn't matter. It could go in either way, but as you can tell, this one here does matter. And like I said, use the socket on there. But anyway, that's pretty much, that's about it. Now I'm just waiting for my new bearing to come. So when my new bearing comes, I'm going to get this pressed in here like that. And this throwout bearing will be ready to go back in. And then we'll change out our triple seals and a few other things. So we'll change the O-ring on this housing in there. I'll show you. But stay tuned. I'll catch you in a few. All right, everyone. I've got the clutch flange here. This is the one that came out of the car, which really I would think this was almost in good enough shape to go back in. But the customer bought a new one. This is a Hill Engineering clutch flange. But I want to notate, it came with these two pins here, okay? These pins here are used to block these holes here. I don't know if these are used in another car or what they're for, but on the 348, they are not used. Here's the original one, and you can see they've got these plugs in here. So when you install these, I'm going to throw some thread locker on these and put them in. But I kind of screwed them in there temporarily, and you can kind of screw them down a little bit, and then you can kind of feel some interference. So I'll probably screw them down a little bit further, and then you kind of like cut them and then peen them over. But you don't want to block that hole there. See that hole? You do not want to see that threaded portion into the hole. So you want to stop just shy of that, or just flush with the upper half of it, but you do not want to protrude into the hole itself. So like I said, here you can see this old one here. You cannot see the pin, so you don't want to block the hole. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stick those in there, and like I said, I'm going to have to cut them off somehow, and then just kind of hit them with the hammer to peen them over to kind of lock them in there. So like I said, I'm going to throw some thread locker on there before, so it's Loctite. And then I've already got my new seal in here. The seal's already in here. And then when we throw this on, we're going to put some sealant RTV around here just to give it a little extra. And then there's some seals on the case that we're going to install. So I'm going to go ahead and put these threads in right now. Okay, as you see, I've got the studs in here right now. They had like little square ends on here, and I tightened it up and they sheared. Okay, it got so tight that they sheared off. So I don't know if that's the way they're designed. I mean, there is hardware out there that does that. And then, like I said, they do not protrude into the hole. So now I'm just going to take a high speed, like this grinder wheel over here. Okay. I'm going to take this, and then I'm going to cut them about right where that purple is. See where the Loctite? I'm going to cut them like about right in there, and then just peen them over with the hammer a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so here's this part of the stud I just ground off. Like I said, I got a little bit of protrusion here. Like I said, when you're doing this, you're going to get a little bit of this aluminum flake. Just clean her up real good. And then when you're cutting that off, just watch you don't hit the housing here anywhere. That could be bad, especially on this mating surface. But try to avoid hitting that with your grinder or cut off wheel, however you cut them off. But now I'm just going to kind of take a hammer and peen these over a little bit. I mean, they don't need to be flush, but I just kind of want to lock them in a little bit better. They can be sticking out a little bit because there's nothing in this area. So it's not going to bother it. All right, so I've taken a hammer and I've kind of smashed these. As you can see, I mean, they're sticking up a little bit. Like I said, there's nothing in that area. I mean, these are a little bit flatter over here, but same results. So anyway, just make sure you have this flange all cleaned up, and then we're going to put a little sealant on there, and we're going to go over here. Let me take my box. So we're going to go ahead and change this O-ring out, put these two O-rings in there. This is brake fluid, so I was going to use some this .4 fluid here and pre-lube the O-rings, kind of help them hold them in place, and then just help them, you know, seal in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to pop that out. Like I said, I've got the new ones here, and we'll be ready to go here. Alright, so I've got my new seals in there, got the area kind of cleaned up. Because I put a little oil on them, or brake fluid. So that's all ready. Like I said, the same here. You want to put a little bit of, you could probably put a little oil on there. And I'm going to put a little sealant around this outer edge, because that's what they had in there. So I'm going to do that right now too. Alright, so I've got a little bit of RTV around the edge there. I mean, very lightly. I would not go very crazy with that, because like I said, it's got the O-ring in there. Because what you don't want to do is get too much sealant in there and you're blocking these holes at the top. Okay? because if you block those holes, your clutch is not going to work correctly. So you definitely don't want to do that. Like I said, I just put like a little bit around this flange here and kind of wiped it out with my fingers. Like, it ain't going to take much because this is such a close tolerance fit. It ain't going to take much RTV to seal that. So like I say, you don't want to block those holes. Alright? Alright, so I've got the throw-up bearing flange reinstalled. And got these torqued up. I did around, what was that, 40 inch-pounds. I couldn't really find a torque in the manual, so I just went up standard torque. I think that's like a 1/4 inch stud in diameter, and it goes by threads per inch. And then there's a scale, which it came out to about 38 to 40-ish. So that's why I torqued them to 40 inch-pounds. So there's not much on those. You don't want to go too crazy. Like I said, this is you're into aluminum housing. So next thing we're going to do is I'm going to pull this ring off here, and then we're going to end up changing these triple seals. The other day, what I'm going to do is you're going to have to heat the new ones up in water, get them in boiling water, and then you're going to have to stretch them, and then you're supposed to cover this shaft with something so it doesn't mar up the new seals. But I've got to take this snap ring off here too. This is just kind of comes off. You just get like a little pick or something and get it out of this groove. But other than that, we'll go ahead and start that right now. Like I said, I might just end up taking these, cutting these off or somehow or whatever. It's not really going to matter because they're junk. And then, like I said, we'll have to pull this snap ring back. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've taken the triple seals off. Just like I said, they went right here. 1, 2, 3. And then that snap ring. And then, like I said, snap ring, I just took this awl. Just took the awl and just kind of got underneath it one end and just kind of popped it up. And then you can take your fingers and kind of just like move it down. So there are the triple seals. Here's your little snap ring. And then here's the new ones that I'm going to install. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat them up in boiling water, and then I'm going to slide them over this 1/2 inch extension, which is about the same size as the shaft. Okay, so I'm going to stretch them out, slide them over that, and then they're gonna be like sloppy loose once you get them back here. I mean, that's like, what is the purpose of this? I mean, it's just a horrible design, but I mean, that's the only option that we have. Anyway, we'll do that, and then once you get that, you just slide this back in, and then don't forget to put your snap ring back in here, and then we'll be done. But I'm going to go ahead and heat those up in some boiling water in a cup, and then I'll return, and then we'll stretch them. And then you're supposed to like cover this shaft here so the seals don't drag on it and I guess get marred up on the inside. There's no wrong or right way to install these. The seals are, I believe, the same on both sides. As you can see, there's like a little ridge on the inside here. It doesn't matter which direction. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and heat those up and continue on. All right, so I've taken like a part of a cup, plastic cup, and I've cut it, and I've got this sitting over the shaft here now. I've got my seals in a cup of boiling water, and then like I said, I'm gonna slide them onto this here to kind of stretch them out before I install them. So we're going to see how that works. Alright, so I've got my triple seals on here. Like I said, they're kind of like a little deformed, but that's the way they go. And then we'll slide them on there, and they'll seem like way too big. And then we'll slide the shaft back in, and then it'll eventually shrink back. But they look horrible when you put them on. I was like, man, what is going on here? But that's the way these things are. They're a terrible design. You would think that they would have had something better than this. But I'm going to go ahead and try to slide them on here now. And we'll show you when I get them on. Okay, I've slid them on there. And like I said, they look loose, which they are. It's just no way around that. Like I said, they'll shrink eventually once you get it back in. You just have to kind of ease them in, kind of have to center them up while you're pushing it back in, and then it'll shrink back up with the heat. But other than that, I'm just gonna pull this sleeve off. I'll put that in, and I'll put the snap ring on. Okay. Okay, so I've got my seals on here, and all I got left now is to put the snap ring back on, and then that'll be done. These are kind of a pain in the butt. Like I said, you kind of got to somehow compress them again, which I end up taking this clamp here, and I slid it over here, and then I kind of like squeezed them a little bit, and it seemed to compress them. But you just got to watch that you don't pinch them or get them in any kind of weird out of the groove. So make sure they stay in the groove, and just kind of slowly compress them, and then you're able to get them to shrink. And then, like I said, I'll put the snap ring back on, and then we should be good to go. Alright, so I got the snap ring on. It doesn't matter where it goes, just as long as it's on there. Like I said, the seals are all in there. There's still a little bit of a slop in them, but then just kind of slowly feed them in there. And there you are. That's it. There's another O-ring right here that's going to get replaced, but I'm going to leave it for right now. I won't replace that until I get ready to install the clutch assembly and everything, because I don't want to get damaged. So I'm just going to leave that there right now. So other than that, that is done. I can't throw the throw-out bearing on there quite yet because I don't have the new bearing. I don't have the new bearing yet. And I'm waiting for that. So as soon as I get the new bearing, the rest of this can go back together. The plate that holds this and everything will get installed. But I'm kind of waiting for that stuff right now. So we'll continue this when we get there. All right. Okay. I know earlier in the video we talked about the old bearing and that. We tried to find a new bearing for that housing, and we could not find a replacement. So we went ahead and ordered a Hill Engineering throw-out bearing. It came with the new housing and the bearing. It fits pretty good. And I know if you use the Hill Engineering flange here and you use the old bearing, if you were able to find one that worked, these springs would be kind of offset. So if you use the Hill Engineering bearing, throw-out bearing, these springs won't be offset at all, and they'll be nice and straight for you. So that was probably the best route to go. It was complete assembly from Hill Engineering. So that's the way we're going to go on this. And we're going to continue on and put this back together. And we'll catch you here in a few. All right, everyone. We're back here on the clutch assembly. And we're going to take this apart so I can get the flywheel resurfaced. And to do that, first you got to take these 3 screws out of the ring gear here, and they are number 5 Allen. So take those off, and then this has an alignment mark on it, so you want to keep an eye on that. Pop this off. I'm going to take like a scraper or something to pop this off, and then once you get that off, it exposes some other screws around the perimeter of the flywheel assembly. Alright, I've got the ring gear off, and then now, like I said, these are number 5s also. We'll have to take these loose here, and then this clutch assembly should come apart, okay, so we can get to the pressure plate, and we'll have to get that sent out and resurfaced. Alright, so I've installed the ring gear. You might have to use like a soft mallet or something to install. Like I said, make sure your holes line up, because this thing is tight, so if you're off, you're going to be taking it off again. So right now, we're just going to do these diagonally as much as possible. There's only 3 of them, and these are torqued to 13 Newton meters or 115 inch-pounds also. So I'm going to go ahead and torque those up, and then that portion will be done. All right, we've got all these screws loose now. We're just going to take these out with the washers. Don't forget the washers. All right, we're gonna bag those up. Hello everyone, we've got our clutch assembly back here. We had sent out the flywheel to get resurfaced. It's been redone. We've got our new clutch assembly over there sitting on the old. We have like the old clutch here, the disc, and there's our new one. And then, like I said, our pressure plate there. We're going to go ahead and reinstall that. I kind of like lined this up prior to shooting a video here. As you saw the disassembly, this unit had like somebody had marked it, so I got this piece as close as possible to that, and this one has a mark on it also. They had like a little divot here, punch mark, so I had put that back down. I'm going to try to put that back in there about the same location. I know it's not really going to make a difference, but that's the way I'm going to do it. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put my new disc in here, kind of just center it up. You can kind of see where the old one was riding. I'm just going to get it as close as possible in here so I don't have to hopefully mess with it too much. Just kind of eyeball it. And then I'm going to go ahead and set this piece on there, and it should fit in there nicely. Let me see if I can do that here without causing too much havoc here. Try to line up the screw holes as close as possible so I don't have to mess with it too much, and it kind of just work its way down in there. And like I said, it should fit flush in there, which it felt like it went down. And then they're going to go ahead and reinstall your screws. Hopefully they'll all line up. Don't forget the washers. Like I said, they line up pretty good. I might have to manipulate it a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and set it down. I'm going to put all the screws in, kind of make sure everything lines up, and then we'll torque her up. All right, so I put my bolts all in, all the way around. I kind of tighten them across from each other, all the way around. You just don't want to do one side. You're supposed to have the tool to align this. I don't have it, so I'm just getting as close as possible. Like I said, it looks like it's centered pretty good in there. I doubt if I'm going to have any problems, but I'm going to torque these to 13 newton meters or 115 inch-pounds, and I'm going to do that cross diagonally also. So I'm going to go ahead and torque those, and once those are torqued, we'll put the ring gear on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and torque these up. All right, so I've already torqued these up. Like I said, you want to start cross from each other, and then once you think you're done, I just go around one more time just to double check them. So like I said, that's 13 newton meters or 115 inch-pounds. So now I'm going to fit the ring gear, and how I'm going to do that is, like I said earlier, I'm going to take my reference mark. I mean, like I said, this is a new unit, so it probably really doesn't make a difference, but this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to take my reference mark that I had right here off the original flywheel, right here, and kind of line it up with this assembly here. And then the ring gear was marked also with a yellow mark here. It was, see, it was aligned like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get that as close as possible to the original. It may not line up. It doesn't look like it's going to, but, and I don't know, like I said, this is a whole different unit, so it's going to balance different. I don't have a way to balance it. I don't know really if any shops balance these. I mean, maybe if you took it to a machine shop or a transmission shop, they may have a way of balancing them. That might be an option if you want to get critical with this. But anyway, I'm going to find the closest as possible and install that. All right, so I've installed the ring gear. You might have to use like a soft mallet or something to install. Like I said, make sure your holes line up, because this thing is tight. So if you're off, you're going to be taking it off again. So right now we're just going to do these diagonally as much as possible. There's only 3 of them, and these are torqued to 13 newton meters or 115 inch-pounds also. So I'm going to go ahead and torque those up, and then that portion will be done. All right, so we've got a 5mm here, and I'm going to take the one side out here. Doesn't matter which side. And then try not to make a mess. It started to come apart. So what I'm going to do is take a little screwdriver here. Try to separate this thing. Okay, it's coming. And there she is. What a mess. What a mess. All right. So we're going to clean this thing up. Figure out where this went here in a second. So anyway, there's one there. Should be some more around in here, but we'll get this thing figured out. Once I get it cleaned up, I'll figure out where it goes. But I'm going to go ahead and clean this now, and we'll continue on here in the video once I got it cleaned up, because you don't need to watch me clean this up. All right. All right, so we're going to take this clutch balance unit now. We're going to take it apart. First, we're going to take these 2 screws out here with a Allen fitting, and then we're going to try to use some air to separate this unit. This unit separates right here, and then we're going to see if we can get this thing open, and then clean it up, put some new grease in it, check the seals, make sure they're in good condition, and then put it back together and then service it up. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this right now. But anyway, let's go ahead and get going. All right, so we've got a 5mm here, and I'm going to take the one side out here. Doesn't matter which side. And then try not to make a mess. Started to come apart. So what I'm going to do is take a little screwdriver here. Try to separate this thing. Okay, it's coming. And there she is. What a mess. What a mess. All right. So we're going to clean this thing up. Figure out where this went here in a second. So anyway, there's one there. Should be some more around in here, but we'll get this thing figured out. Once I get it cleaned up, I'll figure out where it goes. But I'm going to go ahead and clean this now, and we'll continue on here in the video once I got it cleaned up, because you don't need to watch me clean this up. All right. All right, as you can see here, let me shut this fan off real quick. All right, you can see that I've got this, your clutch assembly dampening unit, or balance unit, however you want to call it. It's apart, cleaned up. You can see here all the parts to it. There's an O-ring that's in here, and the little O-rings are 6 or 12 little O-rings that go around the side here. 6 on this side, 6 over here. As you can see, they're right here. I've got a couple that probably need to be replaced. These are hard to come by. We've checked around. I'm not too worried about these little seals. I could probably get these locally, but it's this bigger seal that is a concern, because it's such a large seal. A lot of places won't have this. So if you can find one, I'd probably replace it. If you don't have one, I would probably take care of it and see, you know, if you can get another one. But these are not available from Ferrari or any of the vendors at this point. Now, you might be find an alternate for this seal, but if you can, great. I don't think it's made out of anything specific, so you won't have a reaction with the fluid that the clubber grease that you're using. But if you always seals, if you can replace them, because they're always may have some wear or whatever. So anyway, I'm gonna probably try to reuse that. I may do something different after I'm done about sealing this unit a little bit better, because these units like to sling grease. So these for sure I should be able to replace. I don't think there's anything special about these. This is the plug, by the way, that goes in there. And they have seals in them also. So I'm going to try to replace these. But anyway, you can see this thing here is apart. It's all cleaned up. It does have a kind of an order. These don't really matter. They're all the same. It depends on what way you put them in the unit, because some will go one way, others will go the other. I mean, flip-flop back and forth. These are different. I believe it's just the spacing in this piece here. We'll check them out here when I put it back together. These don't have the ridge. These do. These little springs here go on these little sliders here. So I'll show you how this goes back together. Matter of fact, what you probably want to do is lube all this stuff with your grease first, and then kind of assemble this as you go. Like I said, you're going to have to put your seals in here first, and then assemble this. So that's where we're at right now, and I'm going to see about assembling this here in a few minutes. All right, so we've got this thing all cleaned up now, and I went and purchased some new O-rings here. This is like a metric O-ring pack. I just got this at O'Reilly's. And I'm going to use what looks the closest is a 7mm inside diameter times 11 millimeters outside diameter. So this is the original O-ring here. This one here is pretty close. It's a little thicker, which I think will actually help seal it a little better. And it fits in this hole pretty good. This hole right here where the bolt goes through, it fits pretty good. So I think that's the seal we're going to go ahead and use. So we're going to go ahead and put this one over here, and we're going to pick out 12 of these right now. So we've got 5 there, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we're going to use those 12. And then I said I'm probably going to use the big O-ring over again. This O-ring here. I'm going to use this one over here again. And I just placed these shims here. As you can kind of look and see where the old one was sitting. So I'm just kind of going to put the O-ring in there and then place these as required. So you can probably go like that, because I don't know if you want to really kind of cover this plastic piece here, because it has this piece that slides back and forth, and I don't want anything to interfere. So I'm going to slide this like this way. This one here, you can kind of tell, it used to sit here like this, and then so on over here. Like I said, I had to put my O-ring in there and grease yet. So let me go ahead and get ready to do that. So give me a second. I've got my grease here, this clubber grease. Like again, this is supplied by Ferrparts. Thank you, Ferrparts, for supplying this to us. So we're going to take this, and then we're going to lube each one of these O-rings up. And just going to do a little dab there for right now, and then just place it each in one of these holes. It kind of sits in that recess kind of nicely. So we're going to do that to all these here. Okay, first, so we kind of holds the O-ring in place. So we're going to do the same thing all the way around. Same with the other side. So we'll just continue on doing this. Alright, so we've got all our O-rings in place with a little bit of the grease. As you can see, they're all here. And then same over here, they're all in place. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to put these little shims in here. Like I said, I'm just going to, you can kind of see how they were sitting. You can kind of see right here, this is what was resting against here. You can see the old spacer was sitting right there. So we're going to go ahead and put these on right now. Well, you know what? What we can do is, since I don't really want to flip this side up, we'll do this side. We'll actually stick the spacers in on this side. So we're going to go ahead and put a little grease on these also, and kind of help hold it in place. But kind of stick it on there like that temporarily. Grease kind of holds it in place. So we're going to continue to do that all the way around. Alright, so I've got all these little shims in there now, and I'm putting these little spacers in. Right now I'm just kind of setting them there. Okay. Put them all in there. I'm going to put a little grease inside here. Going to lube this up. Kind of give it a bearing that sits in here. And then I was just going to kind of, before I put that wheel in there, that balance unit, I'm just kind of put a little grease in here just to kind of help it out. Okay, just kind of a little bit all over. Kind of smear it around. trying to not touch those little spacers. And if you do, obviously you can rearrange them, but trying to get the holes to stay lined up here. Okay, it's, like I said, spread all this grease all over, so it just kind of, it's in there, all the gaps. And eventually it'll get everywhere, because this thing like slings this thing all over. So then once I get that kind of greased up, I'm going to go ahead and set this unit in there. Let's see here. I think that goes this way. This only goes one way, so you can't mess this up. And then these slots here have to go with that phenolic piece in there. They have to line up with that. So I'm going to do that right now. There we are. Alright, that's all lined up. Now these pieces here, you can see there's like a little chamfer edge on that. Alright, so I've got all these spacers in here now. The little round spacers below the grease. This balance unit only goes in one way. And then next we're going to stick in these other flat pieces here with little springs. Let me put the glove on here. These are going to go with a little chamfer side to side. So we're going to stick that in there like that. Stick one spring in there. Alright. And we can stick a little more grease in there if you want. Stick a little grease in there. Stick some grease in here, if you like. So you can stick this from side to side. Chamfer side to side, so stick that in there. Stick the spring in there. And then same thing here. Like that. Like that. Now, there's a little notch in here. I don't know if that does anything right here. I wouldn't think so. I don't see anything in this unit that would have anything to do with. There's nothing that catches it or anything. So, I don't think it matters. So the next thing I'm going to do is then kind of put these springs together. And like I said, I think one of these go with each for gap purposes. I think that's what it just does, to fills the gap. So you can see how this thing, the curvature of this thing, you can kind of tell which way it goes, because it's only going to go in really one way because of the curvature. So it kind of fits in there like that. Alright, and then this other piece fits on top like that. So that's how that works. So you're going to do the same thing for all these. I don't think it matters which side goes where. It's just one of each on these sliders. Okay. Let's tie it up. Springs are different lengths. Let me see it. I guess they are. Okay, these springs are different lengths, so we'll see if this fits in this other hole. I didn't realize that. So I wonder what's going on here. I'll figure this out here in a second. Alright, so the longer spring gets the these with the no extra piece on here, the ridge. Longer spring, no ridge. Shorter spring gets ridge. This piece is the same. Like I said, these slots are different lengths. They're across from each other. So this is going to be the longer hole, and this is the shorter hole. So like I said, this is a shorter spring. This is going to get this one with the ridges on it, and it's going to go like this, fit in there, and like I said, it's going to fit kind of in this recess in the bottom here, so you got to have all the stuff kind of lined up, all right, to fit in here. And then this piece here, these are all identical. This goes in here like that, and then the same over here. Grab these two without the ridges, okay, which is the longer spring. Kind of fit it in there, fits in there nicely. Take this other spacer, put it in there. All right, so all this stuff is kind of lined up now. As you can see what it looks like right here, as you can kind of see what that looks like. And then, so we're gonna just fill this up with some more grease here. All right, fill these voids here. Fill the spring up here with it. Just kind of fill that, in here, and here. Get all this grease pushed up here. That, there. Some more across in here. And just kind of spread it all around in there. Like I said, try not to move your little spacers here too much, because you got to have the holes lined up. I mean, I could take one of these bolts and kind of line them up, you know, with everything. So, anyway, and these come up from the bottom. So in reality, I could probably help out by sticking these through right now. They should hold in place. All right, and that'll keep everything lined. Then we will know it's all lined up. So do that right now. So, there we are. Like that. Like there's a washer under these heads, so just kind of work it in there. And so forth. Okay. So basically what I did was I got everything lined up. I pushed the screws in from the bottom here. And it kind of helps keep all those shims and those O-rings all lined up in the spacers here. So that just kind of helps things out. Like I said, I'm just kind of spreading this around. Now you can move it around and stuff's going to stay in place. So that works out better. Like I said, just kind of move this stuff around. Put some more in here. Don't get too crazy with this stuff, because if you put too much in here, you won't be able to put the cover together. It'll be hard to, because you can service this after you get this thing somewhat together. So just kind of lightly put some of the stuff in there. I guess you just want to cover everything. All right. I mean, you can see these little voids here, that's fine to put some in. But you don't want to build it too much on top here. Like you see, you can put the little gaps. It's fine. But put some in here. All right, so that kind of helps that. Smother this around. A little more in here. Good. Good. All right. We got that. At this time, we can put these other ones on. To figure out which way they go is the next question. So this one here, I can tell goes this way. So we'll put it on that, like that. And then this one this way. And then you can kind of feel around in here. Yep, this one went this way. Alright. And then this one went this way. I'm just kind of matching up with the bottom right now. That went this way. And this should be our last one. That one went like that. So now this is all lubed up here. We can throw the top on here, and like I said, these slides here align with these here, okay? These square blocks. So make sure you line that up right there. We're going to be careful because, like I said, we got these O-rings in here, and we're kind of, make sure this all lines up nice. And I guess we could have put the O-rings on the screws too. I mean, it really ain't going to matter. But it's going to push those out and just kind of gently try to get those in. Well, you know what? I don't like how this is going. I'm going to take this off. And what we'll do is, okay, the O-ring's there. The O-ring is here. Like I said, I'll push these down. Like I said, I know that the O-ring is in place if I do it this way. So I'll put the O-ring in there like this. Okay. So all the O-rings are in the correct spot. We know that they're in place. So what we're going to do now is, like I said, you still got to line up your blocks here. The block to here. So kind of push it together here. And there we are. And kind of squeeze it together here a little bit. This O-ring, probably should put a little lube on this O-ring here before we put it in. We can pull it out a little bit and do that. I mean, it's just barely, it's just sitting right here. This O-ring is sitting right here, so we can still put some lube on there. Right, put some grease on that around this edge. I got plenty on my hands. Alright, so we're good there. Like I said, just kind of squeeze this together. See, it's going together nicely now. And then we'll bolt this on to the clutch assembly, okay? So we're going to take this down, and then we're going to bolt to the clutch. Let me go grab the clutch assembly, and we'll bolt it onto there. All right, so as we have our clutch assembly here, our new clutch assembly, the flywheel is the original flywheel. So before we took this apart, there's like some little dots that have been marked this for weight purposes. I mean, even though we have some new parts in it, I'm going to try to get it back how it was from the factory. So there is a little dot here they've pierced into the case of this balance unit here, and there's also one on the flywheel. I mean, as you can see, they're hard to come by, or hard to see, but you can see that there's a little mark here and mark here. So I'm going to line these up, try to get as close to balance as it was before. Like I said, this unit here has been changed, so there's nothing I really can do about that, but I can still try to line this up. If it helps, if it makes a difference, I don't know, but that's the way I'm going to do it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and set this down here. And like I said, my balance mark is somewhere in here. I can't see it now. So it's right there. And then this one here is right here. So we're going to line those up. Gosh. Okay. We're going to line this up and screw it together. So And I think that might be a number 6. So we're going to go ahead and get that, and then we'll screw this together. All right, so we've got this all lined up. I'm just using a crisscross pattern when installing this, just to kind of give it an even torque across from each other. I'm just going to snug them up. All right, so it's got a little bit of a snug here. And then we'll have to find out what the torque is on that. So another thing I'm gonna do right now, these are the plugs here you can service this thing with. I'm gonna remove both of them. I'd removed the other one earlier. This one here, might be a side here. Break this loose. There we are. So ideally, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, you can do it with the grease gun. You can buy the stuff in a grease gun. But ideally, what you want to do here is the grease gun would screw onto here, and then you would pump grease into here until it comes out here. And then that tells you that the thing is fully serviced. So I'm going to try to force some of this in there. I don't know how good I'm going to be able to do. I mean, we have a lot of grease in there already, but like I said, ideally, that's the way you want to see it come out. So I don't know if like I said, if I can do that, if I have enough force, because this doesn't screw on there, it's not the same size. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do that. All right, so I didn't have enough force to keep that sealed good enough, so I just ended up forcing some grease in there through both the holes. Like I said, we lubed this up pretty good. I'm not too worried about that. But like I said, it works best. Like I said, if you had a grease gun, a lot of times if you can put this in a tube, grease tube, and put it in a gun and force it through the system, come out the other hole, that's the best way to service it. But this will work. And then after you get it done, you can stick your 2 plugs back in. So you do that. Snug these up also. Same here. Goes nice and tight. Matter of fact, I don't think they're going to use an O-ring. I'm going to take that O-ring off. I don't like it. Because if that O-ring after a while fails, this will be loose. So I'm going to take that O-ring off and just go back to the way it was. That fits good. We've got these all snugged up now, and like I said, I'll have to look up the torque, but other than that, this thing is ready to go in. It's pretty heavy now. Like I was saying before, try to line up your balance marks if you can find them. Like there's There's one here, and there's one right there. So those are lined up. Like I said, originally this had a mark on it too, but since this is new, we're just going to have to go with it the way it is. But make sure all this stuff's snugged up, and you should be ready to put on the car at this point. So we're going to go ahead and move on at this point. All right, I've got my clutch assembly now slid on the shaft. Had to bump the car back and forth a little bit, but it slid on there. So now that I've got this all lined up, I'm going to go ahead and put the bell housing over here on it, and then torque up this nut. So we're going to go ahead and proceed on and putting this bell housing back on there at this point. All right, so I've got all my 13mm bolts installed all the way around, torqued up. Don't forget your spacer here with this bracket, and then the 10mm over here that connects to your bleed line for your clutch assembly. So all those are on right now. We're gonna install the cover here next, and then we'll go ahead and install this cover after that. All right. All right, the torque on this is going to be about 152 foot-pounds, and then this grub screw is 50 to 60 after you get this torqued, because this is the safety for this nut here. So once you get those torqued, you may have to put it in gear to get that torqued, because otherwise it's going to want to spin the motor and everything. And then once that's torqued, we'll put the cap on and we'll be done with this, and then all we have to do is bleed it. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can torque that up right now. All right, so we've got these torqued now, and then we can go ahead and put this cap on, and then we'll be able to put the rest of the exhaust, the heat shield, and everything back on at this point. And then, like I said, we'll come back later on, and then we'll have to bleed the system. But we're going to go ahead and assemble this. So we're going to go ahead and proceed on. All right, we've got our cover on now with our 13mm nuts torqued up. And then now we're going to lower the car and put the exhaust back on, the heat shields, and then work on the bumper. So I'm going to go ahead and start on that.